So Hare Krishna everyone, welcome to our Gita Gyan level 2, and we are continuing with our Gita Mahatmya. So before we begin, let us say our prayers. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajadam Sakana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jayatam Shuratau Pangur Mama Manda Matir Gati Matsarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vigna Vinasha Narasimhaiti Namini Mukam karoti lachavachalam pangum langayitim girim yatkripa tamaham vande Shri Guru Vinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Mishwaram Om Tat Sat. So welcome again. So we will start with our Gita Mahatmya. So another story waiting for you. So this is in glorification of chapter 15. So we have Lord Shiva telling to dear Parvati, my dear Parvati, now I will tell you the glories of the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Kindly listen carefully. So this story begins in a different part of India, eastern part of India. This is in the area called Bengal. So in those days in scripture, Bengal wasn't known as Bengal. It was known as Gauda. So like the entire world was divided into regions called Desh. Desh means regions. So like, they have Bharat Varsha is the entire world, entire Aryan civilization is called Bharatvarsha. So like that, there is Gauda Desh. Gauda Desh is the place where the Bengal area. So this was just even few hundred years ago. Bengal was much greater than what it is now. So Bangladesh, the current West Bengal, even a little bit parts of Assam. So certain areas of India, this is quite a large region. Now it's quite small. So like that, there are other Desh also. The parts of China, they are called Kasha Desh. Kasha, the Kasha people. And then like other parts of what I can remember, like the Greek area is called Yavana Desh. Yavanas. They are not part of the Vedic civilization. So Yavanas. And then there is the Andhra. Andhra people are called Andhra. So Andhra is a very ancient word. It is even mentioned in the scriptures, Andhra Desh. So like that. So anyway, this is Bengal, known as Gauda Desh. So in Bengal, there are many rivers, but one of the most popular river over there is the Bhagirathi Ganga. So the Bhagirathi Ganga, now commonly it's called Hooghly River. If you go to Bengal, Calcutta, this river flows through Calcutta also and empties at the basin. So it's called Hooghly because it passes through one of the towns of Hooghly. But the ancient name for it is Bhagirathi Ganga. Still, it's called like that in many other places. And along this Bhagirathi Ganga, there are many temples also. Towards the area where it enters the sea. So there's a town called Kalna, Ambika Kalna. So like that, many places, many towns. It also passes through the holy land of where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his appearance. So later I'll speak about that. So some of the ancient temples, which is along this Bhagirathi Ganga. So here I'm putting some pictures. There is one temple called the Bishnupur temple. So like this, I didn't put all the names here, but these are some of the temples. You can see very beautiful architecture, still preserved, many hundreds of years. Some of them have been rebuilt also. And here, this particular temple is in Kalna. Here's another one. This is the unique type of architecture which is in the Gauda Desh. And it passes through, you can see this Bhagirathi River also passes through the headquarters of the Hare Krishna International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is in Sridham, Mayapur, about 100 kilometers north of Calcutta. So this is the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it's a very wonderful, the glories of this holy land is very well described in many scriptures. It's mentioned in the Skanda Purana. It's mentioned in several other places also. So currently ISKCON, we have a large property there and there is a temple there, but now we are building the big temple. So this temple is known as the Adbhuta Mandir. Adbhuta means amazing temple. Amazing because it's quite large and also many unique features inside. For example, they are going to have a floating chandelier, a huge chandelier, which depicts the entire Vedic model of the universe. So just like how, there's Brahma Loka, then there's Satya, from Brahma Loka, Mahar Loka, Jana Loka. So like that, all the different dimensions and all the planetary systems, all of this is going to be built within that big dome, you can see. And over there, so it's all, the superstructure is already there. The domes and everything is there. Now, what is happening is renovation is going on inside. So they are finalizing it. I think it's probably due to open in another 2 years or so. So this is another picture. And these are the deities, the main deities, Panchatattva. There's Radha Madhava, Ashta Shaki. And these are the bigger than life-size deities of the Panchatattva. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Yesterday was on Monday, sorry, last week, Friday, was the appearance day of Advaita Acharya. So like that, and then this is Gadadhar Pandit and Srinivas Acharya. So these are the Panchatattva. So anyway, and then there is also the holy city of Kalna, Ambika Kalna. So you can see these are the so many temples. Each one of them is like a temple with a deity inside. So it's all in Bengal. So anyway, our story, Lord Shiva describes, it takes place in Gauda Desh, and in that time, the entire Gauda Desh was ruled by a very powerful king. His name was Narasingha. He was so powerful. This was during the ancient times, during the Vedic period, during Satya or Dwapara Yuga, around that time. And this king, Narasingha, was so powerful because he was very saintly and he carefully followed the instructions of his guru, and he learned all the fighting arts very well. And he was very powerful that he was even able to defeat the Devatas. Of course, sometimes, the Devatas would like to test, and in such tests and sports, he was able to defeat them. He was that powerful. And the Devatas would also request him to assist them in fighting the demons sometimes. So this was a very ancient time. However, this king, the commander, he had a commander. He was the king and he had a general who was the commander of his army. And the name of that general was Sarab Merund. So this was the general, Sarab Merund. Unfortunately, this general was a very greedy general, and he wanted to somehow usurp the kingdom. He wanted to arrange in some way for the king to die and usurp the kingdom. He was also very intelligent and he was expert in manipulation. So the king had a son, a prince, who was not too intelligent, unfortunately, and he's a bit greedy. So this Sabab Merun, the general, he was able to get into an intrigue with this prince, and somehow, he was saying, why wait for your father? Why don't you take the throne now itself? So they were planning a coup, a fratricide as well as a coup, to kill the king and install the prince. So, but somehow, by good fortune, they were not able to carry out this plan because for some reason, we won't go into the details of that, but this Sabamerun, the general, he was struck down with cholera, a type of disease like cholera, and he died. So therefore, the king maintained his position. So this Sabamerun died. And what happened after he died, this Sabamerun took another birth. So as we know, death is not the end. We continue with our rebirth again and again, according to our desire and according to our karma. So this time his karma forced him into the body of a horse. And he was a good horse, very beautiful horse and everything. And he took birth in the province of Sindhu. Sindhu is now modern day Pakistan. It's bordering between Pakistan and India, next to Punjab. So Sindhu. And Sindhu is a very beautiful region. It is near the Himalayas, and there's a very beautiful river, the Sindhu River. So, that's why even Hindus are called Hindus, because actually we are called Sanatan Dharma, our philosophy and our understanding. We are not Hindus. The word Hindu is a word which was coined by the Muslims, by the Persians. When the Persians wanted to cross over India, to come to India, there was a river. It's called the Sindhu River. So they used to refer to everybody, those Aryans who are living on the other side of the river, the Sindhus. So Sindhu, 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 Hindu. So the word became Hindu eventually, because the Persian language, the word S is not mentioned very clearly. So it became H instead. So therefore it became referred to the Hindus. So that's how the name stuck. And then we became known as Hindus. So, but actually, if you read the scriptures, in nowhere in the Vedas or nowhere in any of the scriptures, the word Hindu is mentioned. That is only the truth, the absolute truth, the eternal Dharma, Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan means eternal, Dharma means the principles. So this was unique, universal throughout not only the world, throughout the universe as well. So anyway, this is the beautiful Sindhu River. You can see it's very beautiful. And then, and it's one of the holy rivers. So there are 7 prominent holy rivers which we invoke every day when we perform Achaman, right? When we do worship. Ganga cha Yamuna chaiva Godavari Saraswati Narmade Sindhu Kaveri Jalismin Kuru. So Ganga, Yamuna, Godavari, Saraswati, Narmada River, Sindhu River, Kaveri. So like that, these are prominent rivers. There are many holy rivers in India. Like there's the river Sarayu, where Lord Ramachandra entered into the river. And then there's there is also the Chandrabhaga River in Pandharpur. But these are the 7 principal rivers. And Sindhu is one of them. So what happened is this horse took birth in this area, and there was a merchant prince who liked to travel in that area for his business. And this merchant prince, he came across this horse, and he thought, wow, what a beautiful horse. If I can tame this horse somehow, I can sell it at top price to the king and whoever, royal people, and they will give me a lot of money. So therefore, somehow he trapped the horse and everything, and he wanted to, and his business dealings, just see the twist of fate. The twist of fate led his business dealings back to this king of Bengal, king of Gaudadesh, this king Narasimha. So, and somehow the king became very happy with this horse. He wanted to buy it immediately when he saw it. And this merchant prince also sold the horse to this king. And the king took this horse and took care of it, kept it in a saddle. So, but he didn't know, of course, that this horse was previously the general who tried to kill him and take over his throne. But anyway, so what happened? It transpired that he wanted to take this horse for a hunting ride. So kings in those days, to maintain their Kshatriya skills and everything, they go hunting. So he rode on his horse, and after a very successful hunt, he went alone. Those days, the kings, one of the ways to become king in Bengal was to, when the prince becomes old enough to take up the kingdom, one of the traditions of Bengal is that in Gaudadesh is that the prince must go into the forest and fight with a tiger, Bengal tiger, one of the biggest tigers in the world, the most ferocious ones. He has to fight with the Bengal tiger hand-to-hand combat without weapons. Just a small dagger he's supposed to hold, and in this way kill the tiger. If he manages to kill, then he has proven his Kshatriya capability. So even a few hundred years also, this was being followed before the British came. During the Muslim time also, Bengal wasn't, before it became conquered, the kings used to practice like this. So anyway, after riding for a long time, the king became tired and he wanted to take a rest. He was chasing a deer. So he came to a lonely spot near a river. And in this river, there was a stone, a pile of rocks. So he tethered the horse nearby, and then he sat on the rock. And while he was sitting on the rock resting, suddenly a piece of parchment flew and came to him. And this piece of parchment, it hit his face. So then he took the parchment and then he started reading. And to his surprise, this was a Sanskrit, of course it's Sanskrit, and It's basically the chapter, the slokas, which is inside the chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita. But he didn't know that. So he was just reading. So as he was reading loudly, and the horse nearby was also there. As he was reading the complete chapter 15, he completed reading it. Suddenly he heard a noise, a neighing sound, a very strong neighing sound. And then he turned and he thought something must have happened to his horse. And he looked around and he saw that his horse had fallen down. And when he came towards his horse, he saw the horse had died. And as the horse died, something amazing happened. From him, a light came, and the horse took the form of a four-armed person, an effulgent four-armed personality. And this effulgent four-armed personality boarded upon a beautiful aeroplane, which is also manned by other four-armed beautiful personalities who look just like Lord Vishnu. And in this way, this personality who was once the horse, he attained higher destinations, brought him all the way to Vaikuntha. So the king was watching this and he was amazed. And he said, hey, what is this? Suddenly, the horse just falls over, dies, turns into this four-armed shining personality, boards into an aeroplane that just came out of the blue and went to Vaikuntha. How this is amazing. Then he realized there must be something happening in this area. So he turned around and he started looking. Is there some? He started looking, investigating the area where he was resting. And as he was looking, he came across a very peaceful-looking Brahmana. So this peaceful-looking Brahmana was sitting by a tree, and and there were other animals who were peacefully there also. Even the tiger was there, very peaceful. Everything was peaceful, and he was chanting. He was sitting there and chanting, and this king, when he came across him, he thought this person may know something. Let me ask him. And then he approached, and then the Brahmana received him, knowing that he's the king and all. And the king asked, he told the story of what happened. I came here, I read something, that a parchment which came, and then I read this, and then immediately this horse of mine died and then attained this form and went to the spiritual world. And then the Brahmana asked, do you remember the verses that you spoke? And then the king said, yes, I remember one verse. And then he spoke that verse. And then the Brahmana said, this is nothing but the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. One of the verses you must have read the entire chapter, 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And then the king asked, can you tell me, how did this horse attain such a great destination? And then the Brahmana, he's replied, actually, this is my ashram. And over here, every day, I recite the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita without fail, with great devotion, constantly. And I sometimes write it down in parchment as I recite. And this parchment must have flown away and must have come to you. And as he was saying this, then he said, but do you know, actually, the horse was not an ordinary horse. Previously, this horse was your general. And this general of yours, Sabarimund, he had planned to kill you. But because he planned to kill you, but he died untimely before his plans came to fruition. And because he had planned some negative things towards you, his karma bound him in such a way that he was forced to take birth and still serve you continuously, but in a lower form. And you are able to make use of him. So he was basically serving his karma, but unknowingly, without his great fortune was that you recited this Bhagavad Gita. And the moment you recited this Bhagavad Gita, his karma was completely wiped out. All the karma, including the prarabdha, aprarabdha, bija, kutam, everything was wiped out. And he attained this wonderful form of this Vaikuntha, this Vishnu Duta form, and attained the spiritual world. So this is the fruit. So it's a very powerful spiritual process. So as soon as this king heard this, he wanted to also follow in that footsteps. He said, can you also teach me this? My entire life, I am here as a king simply to serve the Supreme Lord. I am a representative of the Supreme Lord and in this world, but I do not know how to attain him. Though I have even directly served the Devatas, but I want to attain that Supreme Personality. He I have never met. So can you show me what to do? So then the Brahmana said, very simple. You retire from your kingdom. You are quite old already now. So give your kingdom over to your children and then come and sit with me in this ashram and dedicate your mind and your heart and your life in devotional service, in reciting constantly this Bhagavad Gita. So in this way, the king gave up everything and then eventually retired in this way and took up the spiritual practice of Bhakti Yoga under the tutelage of his guru. So Lord Shiva says, where he recited regularly the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita and very quickly attained the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu. So he also at the end of his life boarded a Vaikuntha plane and went back to the spiritual world. So such is the power of Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and reciting, chanting. And in this way, Smaranam, remembrance will come into our mind. And at the time of death, with these processes being done throughout our lives, or with sincerity, then immediately we will be able to remember that Supreme Personality of Godhead at the time of death. And without fail, we will attain. What to speak of liberation? Liberation is easily enough attained. The horse was easily able to attain liberation. But liberation alone is not sufficient because one may still return to this material world following one's desire. Because an uncontrolled desire, even liberated, is dangerous. Just like a person may be in jail due to whatever crime that he may have committed. But you know, even after the person is free from that jail, he's liberated. But unless his heart has changed to a higher goal, higher calling, he will still go back to his crooked ways, his old crooked ways. And again, he may come back to the prison. So the change of heart has to occur. And that change of heart can only be brought forth by bhakti. So the king had experienced that change of heart by performing this bhakti yoga process. So he was more fortunate than the horse. So he was able to, he of course both went to Vaikuntha, but the king went to Vaikuntha with bhakti. So there was a very great chance that he will remain there eternally. Not a chance, it's guaranteed that he will be there eternally. He has attained the goal of life. Right? So that is the understanding of this chapter. So this chapter 15, talks about Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of that Supreme Person. So it's very important to understand, because when we talk about bhakti, how do we develop bhakti? We need to first of all understand the goal of bhakti. So the goal of bhakti is to love and serve that Supreme Person. Supreme Person is called Purusha Uttama, Supreme Person, right? So Purusha means the enjoyer, and Uttama means the ultimate. So that Supreme Person who is the ultimate enjoyer, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And one who serves him undividedly, right? That service is called bhakti. And there are many different varieties of bhakti. and one can serve in that different varieties as we see. But first we have to develop that inclination. That desire has to take birth in our heart. Otherwise that bhakti will not come, will not take root. And this bhakti can only be planted. This bhakti is like a seed. This seed of bhakti can only be planted by the devotees of the Lord. So the devotees of the Lord, in some way, if someone were to perform some kind of devotional service due to being introduced by these devotees of the Lord, then that seed of bhakti will grow in their heart. Okay, so chapter 15, Purushottama Yoga. We will do a bit of summary of chapter 15. So it begins where, if you remember chapter 13 and chapter 14, you know, Bhagavad Gita has 3 sections, right? Chapter 1 to chapter 6 basically talks about the boat, you know, how to, what is the boat we need to take in order to get out of this material world? What is the goal of life? So it sets the direction, chapters 1 to 6. It talks about yoga. And then from chapter 7 to 12, it talks about the ultimate goal, the ultimate attainment, which is bhakti. So, and then chapters 13 to 18 will furnish the details to complete the picture. So the means and the goal and the details. So this is basically the entire Bhagavad Gita. And so chapter 13 and chapter 14, they gave lots of details about the nature of creation. So chapter 13 spoke about, you know, why we came here in the first place, and then how the soul transmigrates from birth after birth. So details about the soul, the transmigration of the soul, how it continues to carry on and in this material creation, and how to get out of this material creation. And then in chapter 14, it went into more details about the material creation itself. Chapter 13 was about the soul and its transmigration. Chapter 14 is about the place, the kshetra, the material creation itself, how it is made out of the 3 modes of nature, right? The mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. You know how it's made out of the different elements. You know, the Panchabhuta, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then the subtle elements, manas, buddhi, mind, intelligence, and ahamkar, ego. And then after that, you know, the karmendriyas, the jnanendriyas, and all this, the pradhan, the mahatattva, all this was discussed in chapter 14. How the material energy was agitated, and then it became differentiated, and it starts to expand, like how the universe expands from the seed. And then by expanding, it differentiates, and in this way, the elements are formed, and the elements combine, they permutate, and then different types of bodies are created. So all this is described in detail in chapter 14. So now, chapter 15 will talk about the illusion that we are all in. How we have all been trapped. This beautiful playground has been created. A suitable body has been given to us to enjoy this playground so long as we have desire to enjoy it in this world. And on top of that, now in chapter 15, it will talk about how by trying to enjoy this material world, we have become trapped in the network of karma. How karma has put a spell. It has trapped us within our own actions, has trapped us as we move along deeper and deeper and deeper in our various activities. And that has created more and more illusion, and we have forgotten our actual position under the spell of the 3 modes of nature. And then it will talk about how one can escape. What is that key point which is necessary for us to escape from this world? So it begins, chapter 15 begins with a description of this material world. So this material world is described as a banyan tree. right? You know, a banyan tree is very, very complex tree. It has roots going up and down. You know, it has one single banyan tree can cover the entire forest. It's possible, right? And there are places like that in India where one single banyan tree can grow very big, many, many branches and roots coming through up and down like that. So it's described as a banyan tree. Why banyan tree? To show that it is very complex, this material creation. And it is basically a reflection only though. This material creation, it is just a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So illusion cannot exist if we do not know, if we do not know that's a real thing. For example, there are some class of philosophers, they say that this material creation is not real. Actually, it is real, but it is illusory. There is a difference. Not real means it doesn't exist. It does exist, but it is an illusion of the real thing. Just like image, you know, we learn in science sometimes in from 2, from 3, you know, image, there is an image nyata and an image maya, right? You learn in science, physics. So maya image and real image. So the real image, the image forms, whereas the maya image, the image is, you know, songsang and it's not real. So anyway, the point is, for example, if one looks at a rope and one thinks that the rope is a snake, correct? If one looks at a rope and imagines that the rope is a snake, and then he becomes afraid. So actually, that person is in illusion. That is the description. That is Maya. So Maya has the power to make a person think something real is different. Just like how the rope is real. The rope is not existent. You cannot say there's no such thing as a rope. There is such thing as a rope. One who has seen a rope knows there is such thing as a rope. At the same time, the snake is also real. You cannot say that the snake doesn't exist. The snake exists. It is there. There are such things as snakes. So the rope is real. The snake is real. So where does the illusion come in? The illusion is to imagine that the rope is a snake. So that is the correct understanding of Maya. Not to say that the rope doesn't exist or the snake doesn't exist, nothing exists. No, it's not like that. So these things are there, provided you know where to look for them, and provided you know that you have knowledge of them. But it is there. It's just that we have thought that it is something else. So that is Maya. So similarly, this material creation is real. It is there. It is tangible. It's not that it's false. It is real. What is the problem is that we think it is the actual object. We think that it is the ultimate goal. So it is basically a reflection of the spiritual world. Just like everything is in the spiritual world, like there is if you look at the Krishna Leela, the pastimes of the spiritual world, of what happens, what goes on in the spiritual world, many things are there. Trees are there, kingdoms are there, houses are there, people are there, and activities go on, but there is a huge difference. So we won't get into that detail. Today we will not talk about the spiritual world. So, but nevertheless, it is a pale reflection, just like love, selfless, sacrificing love, which is there in the spiritual world. That defines the spiritual world. Selfless, sacrificing love. That is the spiritual world's nature. But in the material world, that same love, when it is reflected, when you reflect, it becomes upside down, and left and right becomes twisted also. So it becomes twisted. It becomes a perverted reflection. It becomes lust. Love transforms into lust. Both are very similar. You know, nowadays in this world, people will talk all about love. Oh, I love, 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 love. But actually, it's not love. It is simply lust. Because real love is sacrifice. One is willing to sacrifice oneself, one's own pleasure, for the pleasure of another person. So that is real love, right? And we can see a hint of it in the mother's love, you know, parental love. So they are willing to sacrifice for their children. But still there is some contamination. The ultimate purity of it is that relationship we have with God. That is real love. And some permutations of that is there in the material love. Otherwise, that so-called love is simply lust, which goes around in the guise of love. So you can see here, so that's like a perverted reflection. So this is just to show you how the perverted reflection is. And on top of that, it is colored by these three modes. So all the activities, everything in this world, in this material world, is colored by the three modes. These three modes is a nature of this material world. It doesn't exist in the spiritual world. The three modes are not there in the spiritual world. Only in the material world they are there. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. And these three guna means rope. Guna also means quality. You know, in Sanskrit, every meaning has about 12, every word has about 12 meanings. So guna can, and you can see how interesting some words mean a certain thing. That's why this language is God created. It's not something which is man-made. It is the word guna, quality. At the same time, guna also means rope. So these qualities can trap us. What does a rope do? A rope ties us up, right? So these qualities can tie us up. So therefore, we have to be careful to free ourselves from these three qualities, these three ropes, so that we can be free to go to the spiritual. So therefore, this is the first verse. I will just read the verse. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Urdhva Moolam Adakshakam Ashvatam Prahur Avyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnyani Yastam Veda Savedavit. So the word here describes this banyan tree. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead says, Urdhva Moolam. So Urdhva means above. Moolam means roots. So the roots are going upwards. Now, where does the root go upwards? In this reflection, right? You can see the root is growing upwards, upside down tree. The root is going upward and also downwards. Ada means above. Urdhva means, Ada means downwards. Urdhva means above. So the root is growing upward and downward. You know, the banyan tree, the root can also come down from the branches, right? Shakam. So Shakam means branches. And then Ashvatam, Prahur, Avyayam. So it is eternally going on. And what is eternally going on? The roots are traveling up and down. At the same time, the branches are also branching out in all directions eternally, right? And Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Saveda Ved. And the leaves are the twigs. So the leaves are like the leaves of this tree are like the Vedas. So basically the Vedas describe this material creation, and they are saying, what they are saying, this material creation, the roots go deep and they go on extending downwards and upwards. So there is no beginning. You almost like there is no beginning. It's like going on almost eternally. So if we want to find out when we first came to this material world, it's not possible. It's too many lifetimes we have taken, and how many lifetimes we can go? We can go on and on and on eternally also. in this material creation. So the Shaka, basically the Shaka is the branches of this tree. So the branches of this tree are basically Ardhas, Chordvam, Prashtras. So Ardhas means going upwards, going downwards, and it is basically our activities. What are our activities? These branches are like our activities. We decide to do one activity, we decide to do another activity. And then the twigs are like our sense objects. Our activities are basically trying to get the sense objects, right? Why do we work? Why do we do anything that we do? We do what we do because we are trying to go after our desires. Oh, I want to work because I want to earn money, because I want this, I want that, I want that, I want this, I want that. So I want. So because I want, so therefore I do certain activity. So in this way, we are going on and on and on within this material creation. And the root goes further down. And these roots are very complicated network. And this complicated network traps us within this tree. So karma nu bandini. Karma, what bandini means, bandhu means to tie. So karma na bandini, that means to tie us in this karma, the laws of material creation. Because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when we do one thing, there is a reaction which forces us to experience a certain set of experiences. So even though we may have certain desires, which is nothing to do with this reaction, we still have to go through it because we need to experience the reactions. So in this way, there are good reactions, there are bad reactions, there is punya and there is papa. So sin and piety. So in this way, we are traveling up and down this banyan tree. As we travel up, we get higher life forms, devata life forms like that. As we travel down, we get lower and lower life forms, animal life forms. So like this, we are traveling up and down this banyan tree, looking after our desires and getting enmeshed in the various complicated twigs of these activities. So this is a very poetic way of describing the material creation and our activities and how the jiva is interacting with this material creation. So jiva has got a material body, and in this material world, we know about the material body, we know about the material world. Now we know about the interaction, how the jiva interacts with this material creation. So we need to have this vision, we need to understand this, right? This is the beginning, this is the main point of the beginning knowledge of spiritual life. That's why, there are fundamental knowledge, like the fundamental knowledge is knowledge of the soul, and then knowledge of karma. So all these things are fundamental knowledge, which brings us to the goal of the fundamental knowledge, which is to understand how this world works and what are we doing in this world. So this knowledge, this fundamental knowledge, to understand who we are and who God is, it's called Sambandha Gyan. Sambandha means relationship. What is my Sambandha with you? What is my relationship with you? So Sambandha is relationship. And this knowledge of this relationship is the fundamental thing. After we get this knowledge, we are convinced, our faith is very strong. We begin to see the world, we begin to see everything based on this knowledge. Then we will be motivated to do something about it. Because the purpose of knowledge is to apply knowledge, right? What's the value of knowledge if we don't apply? We become armchair philosophers. We simply sit in the armchair and we talk, but we don't do anything. So we don't apply. So the application of that knowledge is known as Abhideya Gyan. Abhideya means to do something about it, the process. So there is sambandha, the relationship, and then there is the process, abhideya, and ultimately it's to attain the goal. The goal, knowledge about the goal of life is called prayojan. Prayojan means the ultimate purpose. So we will talk about all these things in more detail next time. But mainly, Bhagavad Gita gives all three: Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojan. What is our relationship, the process of what we need to do, and then ultimately what is the goal? The goal is to attain, the process is, our relationship is I am soul and I'm here, I'm trapped, I need to, I'm trying to satisfy my desire due to illusion, right? What is the process? The process is yoga, especially Bhakti Yoga. And the details of that is given. And then what is the goal? The goal is to attain me, Purushottama, Krishna says. And then knowledge about Purushottama, to know about God, what God does, what kind of pastimes he performs, what are his interactions with his devotees, and how does he, what are his interactions and how does he behave with them, and what are the sweet pastimes that take place. So all this is prayojan. What are the philosophy behind that? That is prayojan. So chapter 15 is going to speak about, it speaks about the sambandha and it speaks about prayojan. Abhideya is already spoken, the process already spoken in chapter 12 already. But they will mention it briefly anyway. So this is the standard of the Gita. The Gita talks about all these three knowledges, this knowledge. Very important scripture. So with vision comes knowledge and thus determination for liberation or emancipation. So we have to understand the nature of this world, the nature of our interaction with this world, the nature of our body, the nature of our mind, the nature of how the soul transmigrates from body to body. And we have to strengthen this knowledge. We have preliminary knowledge. We have to strengthen it. We have to start seeing everything with this perspective. And that will increase our faith as we hear more and as we also experience it in our life. And that faith in turn will also give us the determination to perform spiritual activities. So one feeds the other. So the knowledge feeds the activity. So that's why hearing and chanting. We hear to get the knowledge, we hear to understand deeper, we hear to build our faith, and then we chant. That is the process. And as we chant, it purifies us, it removes our illusion, it strengthens our determination, it increases our faith. So it's like a cyclic process. And then we hear more, and our hearing will be in a different level. And then we chant even better. And then we hear more at a higher level. And then we chant even better. So like that, the cycle becomes larger and larger and larger and larger until we become completely purified. So that is how devotion, spiritual practice works. So after knowing about the nature of these activities, we have to cut it down. We have to end it in this life. No more. We have to make this, wow, I will no longer take this life after life after life anymore. I want to attain the highest abode. I want to use this human life to perfect it and attain. So we have to cut it down, the axe. Asanga shastrena. Shastrena means the weapon. What is this weapon? Bhagavad Gita, Krishna will say in chapter, this chapter only, 15.3, with the weapon of detachment. Why detachment? Because these are activities we are talking about. This banyan tree is all activities. So we have to cut our activities with the weapon of detachment. So that's the beginning. Remember Karma Yoga? Perform your activities, O Arjuna, but do not hanker after the fruits. Don't look for the result. So therefore, detachment. And how do we strengthen detachment? With knowledge. So one has to be able to see all these things with the right vision. And that is the goal of human life. So therefore, Krishna says in 15.4, thereafter, after detaching, one must seek that place from which having gone, one never returns. So Krishna initially talked about sambandha, relationship, then he talked about process, detachment, we need to cut it, right? And now he's talking about the goal, prayojan. What do we do? After detaching, what do? We need to attain that place from which having gone, one never returns. So there is such a place. It's not that there is no such a place. It's not that everything just goes into light or everything just merges into nothing. No, there is such a place where once having gone, one never returns. Because the process to go there ensures that we never return again. Because by trying to go there, we develop bhakti. And once we have bhakti, we will never return. That is the idea. So this is the preliminary understanding of Bhagavan, the supreme truth. Remember in Bhagavad Gita, we have mentioned many times, the absolute truth can be understood in three phases. The first phase is Brahman realization. Second phase is Paramatma realization. Third phase is Bhagavan realization, right? The first phase, Brahman, is to understand that I am not this body. Everything is eternal. Everything is Brahman. I am Brahman. You are Brahman. The material creation is also part of Brahman. The spiritual energies are also part of Brahman. God is also part of Brahman. So to understand that is Brahman realization. But at this point, they don't understand the personal God. They just know everything is eternal. They don't know the ultimate personality of Godhead. They do not know there is Para Brahman, the source of the Brahman, right? Krishna says, the Brahman emanates from me. I am the source of that Brahman. So then he continues, next level of realization. So, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is the goal of life, to become his Dasa, Dasa, Anudasa, to become servant of the servant of the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the perfection of life. Because by that seva, one develops prema. And with that prema, one experiences the type of bliss, the type of ananda which nobody can experience. So that is the goal of life. So, and who is this Supreme Personality of Godhead? From him everything began, and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So this is what Krishna claims in the Bhagavad Gita. So who can understand Purushottama? What is our qualification? So to understand this goal, this prayojan, so that's why prayojan is at the last level of understanding. Because first we must know our relationship, sambandha, then we perform our process, and as we perform our processes, our intelligence becomes purified, and we finally understand the prayojan in full. So in order to understand in full, we need to come to a qualification level. So what is that qualification level? So that is described in Gita 15.5. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nitya. Okay, anyway, I'll just say the translation. Those who are, so who can understand that Purushottama in full? Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association. Nirmana, false prestige. No, nir means don't have. Nirmana, no more, not puffed up. So Prabhupada likes to say, only the puri can be puffed up. Puri, you fry puri in the oil, the puri becomes puffed up. That means your puri is successful. So only the puri can be puffed up. No one else can be puffed up. Because if we start getting puffed up, then that's we check our advancement. Our advancement in spiritual life becomes checked. No more advancement. And free from moha, illusion, and free from sanga dosha, false association. So those who are free, what does that mean? That means one is humble. One understands that one is just a soul, a small jivatma. We are, what's the size of the soul, right? Bhagavad Gita has described, right? Mandukya Upanishad, 1/10, 1/100th of the tip of the hair, again divide by 100, very small. So our ego should be proportionate to that soul. So therefore, free from prestige and free from illusion. We must understand the nature of this world. We must understand the nature of the three modes. So, and we must understand what is our position and to know the relationship between God. So that is free from illusion. And to be free from false association, cheaters, and those who are materialistic. So a sadhu will not associate with them. They will talk with them and everything, but they do not associate. Association means to be, very close. Not like that. So that is because they will take the higher association of the devotees who understands the eternal, right? That means one who's already understanding the Brahman, who are done with material lust. So this is very important. Who are no longer interested in furthering one's material desires. So that is what do you call? Vinivrita kamaha. So vinivrita means to be completely rid of kama, lust. So how can one get rid of lust? One cannot get rid of lust. Lust can only be transformed. Lust is like energy. Can energy be destroyed? Energy cannot be destroyed. But what can energy do? Energy can be transformed. So we need to transform the lust into love. So the karma into prema. So that is the goal of spiritual life. Prema for the Supreme Lord. Who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress. So they become equipoised. Happiness, distress, difficulty, hot, cold, enemy, friend, all this becomes, they treat them equally. That means in the mind, it's not this cannot be falsely done. We cannot imitate this. So this has to be attained. This quality has to be attained when we attain Brahman. So by performing the spiritual process, gradually we will come to this platform. We cannot, this is the mistake a lot of people make. So they think that, oh, okay, from now on, I will treat everybody. When somebody is treating us badly, we cannot artificially behave oh, you are my friend, or I will treat you equally. No. That is true in the sense that once we have attained Brahman, we know the knowledge, we know the theory, but we have to use our intelligence. We have to avoid such people, right? When somebody is behaving in a negative manner, we avoid them. So that has to be done correctly also. And we focus on our spiritual sadhana, and that will purify us gradually, eventually. So it's not to be imitated. And who is unbewildered? That means one who is not, who doesn't get confused. Like in the beginning, Arjuna became confused, right? So one is fixed in this knowledge. So what sometimes people read Gita, people understand scriptures and everything, but when the situation comes, when a difficulty comes, they become bewildered. So that means that they have not really imbibed the teaching. They have not really started seeing the world through the eyes of scripture. So that has to come. Then they will not become bewildered. So this is a very advanced level, what Krishna is describing here. And this is basically the example set here as the standards of one who is a pure devotee, who can be a guru. And finally, and so these people know how to surrender to that supreme person. Right. So this is important for us to know, right? It shouldn't discourage us because we are conditioned, right? But we need to understand what is the goal so that we can recognize such great personalities when we see them. So these are the symptoms of such personalities. So, but we are conditioned. So what about us then? How do we come to this platform? So therefore, Krishna describes how we got conditioned. So Krishna says, you all are part of me. Mama evamsa jive loke. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. So you're all part of me. Qualitatively, you are the same, right? We have the same quality. We are all made out of Brahman, the eternal spirit. We are not material. So in that sense, we are the same. But we are fragmental. We are very small. We are tiny. Whereas the Supreme Lord is Vibhu, very large. So we, out of desire, we have come to this material world. Just like in this way, just like how the rain contacts the muddy ground. When the rain contacts the ground, it turns into mud, right? So the pure water becomes conditioned by the earth and becomes mud. So in that same way, the jivas come into this material world and we become conditioned by the three modes of nature. And in this way, we become mud. What is mud? Mud means we suffer. Prakriti stani karshati. Due to conditioned life, what happens? Right? This jiva enters, this jiva is part and parcel of Ishvara, right? And having the wrong conclusion, we enter into the Prakriti material world, subjected by Kala, we perform karma, we get trapped in this material creation, and we suffer. Prakriti stani karshati. So they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is the problem. And this prison is an invisible prison. What is this prison? This prison is the prison of continuous birth and death, right? Going through the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death continuously, cycle after cycle, subjected to the three modes of material nature. These are the different flavors that in which we go through them, and being poked by the three miseries: Adi Devika, Adi Bautika, Adi Atmika. Miseries of the mind, miseries of other living entities, miseries due to the devatas serving our karma. So chapter 15 talked about the material world and its network of karma and desire, the sambandha, right? The connection between the jiva and the material world, what we do here. And then he talked about the conditioned jiva and what it goes through, right? So the endeavoring yogi or the bhakta must learn to see this, must get this knowledge from scripture, and we must open our eyes and we must understand this, right? So the endeavoring yogi or bhakta sees this very clearly, or begins to see. And how do you see? You see this with knowledge. So such a person is called Kshetranya. Remember this from chapter 13. One who knows the Kshetra. Nya means knowledge. One who knows, one who has knowledge of what? Of the Kshetra, of this place. So these are the transcendentalists. The ordinary population do not know this. One who understands scripture, they know this. And what do they see? Right? So the yogi can see this. So there's a verse 15.11. It says, Pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Jnana chakshusha. Chakshusha means eyes, right? Chakshu, one who sees with the eyes of jnana, knowledge. Vimuda nanu pashyanti. The vimuda, the foolish, cannot understand this, cannot see this. So who are the foolish? The foolish are those who do not care to try to understand scripture or to understand the information given here. So they continue. And what do they see? What do this jnana chakshusha or these transcendentalists see? Right? Not only do they see the nature of this material prison, not only see the nature of this banyan tree, the reflection and all that, they see the sambandha, they see the abhideya, they see also the goal, prayojana. So that's what Krishna is now revealing in chapter 15. the rest of the verse, Krishna will talk about what is the ultimate goal. Purushottama Krishna. So he's encouraging the yogis to understand, look here, the ultimate goal of spirituality is to attain me in the personal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Purushottama Krishna. And he's our well-wisher. So how does he begin with this? He starts telling such yogis or such people who understand this knowledge, they begin to see me everywhere. So they start to see how the splendor of the sun, wow, the sun is so beautiful, everything is so nice. So they start seeing the Lord in the sun, Surya Narayana. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this world, comes from me. They begin to see the Lord everywhere. If they see anything beautiful, anything wonderful, anything great, they see the Lord's energies and they see the Lord's presence in that person, in that place. And then the Lord continues, the splendor of the moon also comes from me. The splendor of fire also comes from me. Now, these things are very essential for our life. Without these three things, we cannot live. No moon, we cannot live, right? Now there's a movie out which talks about the importance of the moon on how it affects the world. You know, gravitation, but the Vedas describe the moon is representing the mind, you know, and also how the moon represents the juice. It's very cooling rays. It soothes the mind. If at all we are troubled in our mind, one of the things we can do is we can go under the moonlight. You know, it's very soothing. And it also, it can even cure insanity. There's something called moonlight therapy. I won't talk about that now, but it's been shown to help with insanity. So the moon also provides juice of life. It creates the juice of life, vitality in all living entities, right? That also comes from me. It's very beautiful, the moon. And I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. And the orbit of planets, if the planets are moving, gravitation, we see Krishna in gravitation theory, how everything is being held up and how everything is moving according to its orbit. So that is Krishna. I am the fire of digestion. Who gives us the ability to enjoy? Krishna gives us the ability to enjoy. He gave us the eyes to enjoy. He gave us the ears to hear beautiful things. He also gave us the tongue to taste wonderful things. He also gave us the stomach to digest all those wonderful things which we are eating. Otherwise, it's going to create a huge problem for us. So I am that fire of digestion. Without that, what is our enjoyment? One who cannot digest well, he does not have much enjoyment, isn't it? I am, and what to speak of all these things, I am the very air of life. Without me, there is no life on earth. You know, Krishna comes as Paramatma and he makes sure that the body works the way it should work. Actually, it should work perfectly only. Why we have all our problems in our body, that is due to our karma. So Krishna has to adjust our karma to suit our desire. Accordingly, we got that type of body. And in this way, we go through our difficulties and all that. And then Krishna says, I am also, this is a very beautiful verse, Sarvasya chaham hridisani vishto matta smritirnyanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarvairaham eva vedyo vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. Very beautiful verse. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance. Not only remembrance, forgetfulness also. If Krishna wants, he can make us forget. If Krishna wants, he can make us remember. From me comes knowledge. And he's talking about, he already defined what is this knowledge. Knowledge is not about trigonometry or anything like that. Yeah, but that also comes from the Lord. But here he's particularly talking about knowledge, jnana. Chapter 13, he already defined what is jnana. Jnana is knowledge of matter, knowledge of spirit, and knowledge of interaction between this, and knowledge of the ultimate person, which is the Supreme Lord. So this is jnana. So this also comes from me. I am the compiler of Vedanta. So not man-made. The scriptures are coming from the Lord. And I am the knower of the Vedas. So in this way, right, we know that, and then he continues, Krishna continues in verse 16, there are two classes of beings, right? So what are these two classes? So one is the liberated living beings, those who are in the spiritual world, who are in servitude and in prema, serving the Supreme Lord in bliss. And then there are those who did not develop bhakti, who instead, because they did not have bhakti, when there is no love, then it has to be lust. So due to envy, they could not develop bhakti, they got lust instead. And because they had lust, they had to come down to the material world, and the Lord's energy facilitated this material world, which is the Prakriti, and this jivas came to this material world. So therefore, there are two types of living entities, Shara and the Akshara. The Akshara are the infallible, they are there in the spiritual world, and the Shara are those who have fallen. So they are now in the material world. And Krishna says, besides these two living entities, there is the third, which is me, the greatest living personality, Supreme Soul, imperishable Lord, who is maintaining all of this world and creation. So this is the Supreme. Therefore, he is called Purushottama. So there are different types of Purushas, but there is also Purushottama. And then he continues, we are going to be done soon. Yasmat Ksharam Atitoham. This verse says, because I am transcendental and both beyond the fallible and infallible, because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. So this is a clear definition of who that Supreme Personality is. So Krishna is directly showing. Nobody else claims like this in any of the scriptures. No other devata or personality claims this way. So, and for one who knows this, what do we do? So this is very important for us to understand this and develop the faith very strongly. So the importance of strengthening our faith in all of these points and topics that we have discussed is so that this is Sambandha Gyan. Because we have got this information, now what do? We've got the information, we now perform our activity. We try to do something about it. So therefore, this verse comes, the next one. Whoever knows me as the Supreme without doubting, that means with firm faith, with a strong faith, is the knower of everything. He has the eyes of knowledge. He knows everything, right? And what he does, he therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. So there are people who engage in various levels of devotional service. So as we advance further and further and further, as our knowledge increases, as our faith increases, our knowledge increases, and vice versa, keeps continuing. And in this way, we fully surrender. So this is how we come to the point of full surrender. So Krishna is describing step by step how we can attain this. And after that, finally, the last verse, Krishna says, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is now disclosed by me. So Krishna is saying, actually, the real purpose of the scriptures is actually to give you this knowledge only. Because the scriptures talk about many things. It talks about upacharas, it talks about the different rituals, it talks about economics, it talks about so many things. But all this is to help us, yes, but this is the real goal, the real cream, the purpose of the actual purpose. Everything else is supplementary. This is the real thing. And then Krishna says, whoever understands this will become wise. if they understand the real purpose of scripture, then nothing will disturb them. When they see any part of scripture, they will understand immediately how to link it. There is no contradiction. They will not see contradiction anywhere. So they will be able to reconcile every verse and rhyme and scripture, and they will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So whatever his activities are there, ultimately it will attain the highest perfection. So this is a very beautiful chapter, Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. So this is the ultimate goal of life. So we have covered all these things already in summary. Please read this again. It's a very beautiful chapter. So now we can end the food for our soul. Our process is to always take to the holy names of the Supreme Lord. And in this way, we can chant daily, right? So let us chant Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much for chanting with us. So, there is money, there is, we can give money, but more important than money is if we can give our time. Isn't time more valuable than money? We cannot buy time, right? So if we can give our time to chant these names of the Lord every day, then that is one of the greatest things we can give for this. We can invest for our spiritual life, which is the real purpose of life. And as we do this, we will eventually surrender. And at one point of time, we will give our life. Just like so many wonderful devotees described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, described in the Ramayana, described in the Mahabharata, they have all done this. So we will also come to that platform in this life also, if we take this process faithfully. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So I hope that has inspired some and myself as well to do this. Any questions before we close?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Rajan Prabhuji. Yes.
You were saying something about Brahman and then Paratman. Then what about Atman?
What about what?
Atman.
Atma is us. We are Atma. So the soul is known as Atma. All of us, the souls, we are Atma. And there is Paramatma, the super soul, the supreme soul. So in our body, we have two Atma. There are two Atmas in our body, right? We are the Atma, and there is also God. So God is actually here. He's not far away. He's not he is there also. He's everywhere. But actually, he is also with us. So that's why we are never alone. We never think we are alone. God is always witnessing everything in our heart as Paramatma. So that is the super soul, Paramatma. And both of us are spiritual. We are part, and the idea is like this. It's like gold and the gold mine. So, there is small bits of gold here and there. We may have some gold in our house. I might wear some gold ring or something. So it's a small gold ring. But if you say all the gold in the world comes from that particular gold mine, so the Supreme Lord is like the gold mine, and we are like the gold, the small pieces of gold. So the quality is the same. Both also gold, both also precious, both also, the same type of chemical configuration and everything. But one is very, very small and one is very, very large. That's the difference. Okay, Prabhu?
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? No? Okay. So that's good also. So if at all anything strikes you, if there are any doubts, if any ideas come, if you want to clarify, no worries. You can always send it to me. You can just record your voice and then send it in the WhatsApp. I can also, if you're lazy to type, no problem. So we are here to learn together. So thank you so much for this. We will see you all again next time. Okay. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu. Hare
Hare,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai.